Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Imams and Muallimahs. I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's Imams Connect session. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Mahomed Desai. He's a senior ecologist with over 20 years of experience in biodiversity conservation across Africa and the Middle East. He holds a PhD in ecological sciences and a master's in engineering, and currently serves at the Royal Commission for Al Ula in Saudi Arabia, where he leads long-term ecosystem monitoring across 6 protected areas, including the IUCN Green-listed National Park. Dr. Desai is passionate about connecting environmental stewardship with community well-being, making his insights highly relevant for our Imams and Muallimahs. I'd like to hand over now to Dr. Mahomed Desai. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakallah for the introduction, Sayyid, and Jazakallah to the Imams and Muallimahs for attending this session. I just want to share, just let me know once you see my screen. Share.
We can see your screen, Doctor.
Okay, Jazakallah. And you just can call me Muhammad or Desai. It's okay. um, okay, so just to get back onto the topic, so the idea for this discussion was to try and engage with the imams and the muallimas as to how we can benefit nature and also society. And just to give a bit of context, you all would probably know much better than me, but we're all aware of the hadith where by planting if a person plants, a plant and an animal or person actually benefits from it, then we get sawab or rewarded for that. So before I carry on, I don't want this to be a death by PowerPoint presentation. So I want some engagement. I need some engagement. And so if there's any questions that you have during the presentation, please raise your hand, and then Syed will be able to unmute you. And my first question to the audience is, what is biodiversity? Can anyone give me just an answer, or what do they think biodiversity is? Syed, I can't see the panel, so you would have to see if anyone has their hand up for me, please.
Yes, I will.
Okay. If anyone has an answer, um, I mean, sorry, yeah, anyone? Okay, so Sayed, I'm going to ask you, Sayed, can you give me an answer to this? What is biodiversity?
I think biodiversity has everything to do with our environment. So the flow in our environment from the time, I don't know, oxygen is released. How
Okay,
can I
okay, no, not so much that. Okay, just to,
There's someone in
oh,
the
there we go.
comments.
Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't see. I couldn't see that. Sorry. So, okay, just these are just lengthy definitions that are standardized. We don't really need to know this. But essentially, biodiversity is the life around us. Okay, and it involves everything. So from the plants, I mean, we can. So this is just an underwater image that I've taken from Zambia. So it's the plants here. We can see some fish, the algae growing on the log, the bacteria in the soil, their genetics, and the whole entire ecosystem that they make up. That is biodiversity. And why is biodiversity important? Um, what's any comments, any questions, any answers? Why is it important? Anybody? Okay. So let me just see the chat. Oh, okay. So I didn't see someone answered. Yeah, oh, yeah. Actually, somebody answered the biodiversity question. Okay, but why is it important? Anybody? Okay. So why biodiversity is important, okay, is they provide us with what we call ecosystem services. Okay, ecosystem goods and services. What are ecosystem services? So it's basically what society benefits or what humanity benefits from them, from biodiversity. So, for example, we have, we get food uh, from biodiversity, we get medicine from biodiversity, we get soil formation or improved soil quality from biodiversity. We even have tourism from biodiversity. How many people come, to Kruger Park or Shishluwe or Nyungwe if you're in Rwanda or wherever it is. People come there for tourism. So it's all of these benefits that they provide for us. And so we're just going to go through some examples of these ecosystem services. So example, like I mentioned earlier, food. Okay, honey. We get honey from bees, and again, this is in the Quran where Allah has mentioned that this. And what are the benefits that we get from the honey? And we can see there's not only, it's not only local benefits. There's also national economic benefits, and you can see this quality of life that people have improved their quality of life. Um, for example, people in here in Zambia living in a rural area in Mirambo woodlands, cattle, uh, uh, cattle is a sign of wealth. And by selling honey, these people have now managed to purchase cattle. And so their status has increased. They have another means of income is the cattle. So we see these are all the benefits that biodiversity gives us. And we don't have to pay the bees anything. They are, as long as which we will eventually get to, as long as we provide them with habitat and food, we don't have to pay them anything, and they produce this for us. Um, Another ecosystem service that we get, medicine plants. So, for example, in 2006, okay, we had 27 million consumers of traditional medicine in South Africa at and estimated to be 2.9 billion rand per year. Okay, and at least 133,000 people are employed in the trade. The issue with that, of course, is that when we harvest excessively from the wild, we deplete numbers. The species is threatened with extinction. But that means now we have to propagate them. And again, that brings about um, employment opportunities and technological opportunities. Then moving on, again, we get to pollination and pest control. Okay, so this is of course a big issue. So imagine we all know the cost of food is quite, it's quite expensive uh, now. And imagine now if we had to hand pollinate I'm not sorry, I'm just assuming everyone knows what pollination means. Pollination means when you get uh, parts of the male flower transferred to the female flower, and that's how we get fruit. Okay, that's that's what pollination is. Now, imagine if we had to do that manually. So we'd have to employ people to do that, which would then increase the cost of food. Pest control. Now, it's ideally we've obviously we don't want to use pesticides because it's a threat to human health. But again, it's going to increase the cost of of food. And so yeah, so these species, the birds, the other insects, control these pests. Again, we don't have to pay them, okay, to do this for us. It's a service that we get given for free. um Sorry, I was just going through some of the comments in case people had any questions. uh, and sorry, so we can just see that, there's all these studies that have been done to show that biodiversity is positively associated with increasing yields in agriculture and the benefits to society. But of course, there are issues. We've got um, major loss in biodiversity on a global scale, and this is from habitat loss because of mining. Again, it comes back to demand. So we humans, we consuming, so we need to mine more, or we need to build more, or we need to actually expand agriculture more, and so we are destroying habitat, and then we are losing biodiversity. So what do you think will happen if we lose biodiversity? Any questions? I mean, any answers to that? Oh, sorry, someone said my voice is low. um I'm not sure how to increase that volume. Said, do you know?
I think it's from your side, possibly with your mic. Um,
Oh, okay, hold on. But sorry, I've got the mic on because you might hear kids screaming in the background. Um,
yeah,
so let me.
but you sound
Is
loud enough.
is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So just please excuse any screaming in the background. Uh, it's, yeah, just I've locked the door, but yeah, let's see what happens. So yeah, so again, so if we lose biodiversity, what is going to happen?
So we got someone in the comments saying the ecosystem would probably collapse. That was
Okay.
waiting.
Um, okay, I'm not. Yeah, and then so what does that mean for us? The ecosystem collapses. What does that mean for us? Environment will disappear. Yeah, but then yeah, so what is the environment associated with? Remember, it's associated with ecosystem services. Okay. And so those services, yes, exactly. So reduce food security. So all those services, okay, that we are getting for free from biodiversity, we're going to lose that. So we're going to lose pollination. We're going to lose, uh, soil maintenance of soil fertility. We're going to lose actual species that we rely on. So, if we look at provisioning services like fish, okay, if we, I mean, fish is quite a high demand of protein in Africa. And if we don't maintain, water quality and quantity, we're going to lose fish. Okay, so yes, we're going to lose those services. So, oh, sorry, I think I lost my mouse. So what can we do about this? What do you think we should do about this? What can we do?
Plant more trees.
Okay, yeah, we can plant more trees, which we will get to. Okay, and then okay, right, we plant more trees, and that's the idea behind this. Is it's not only about planting trees. Okay, it's about what type of trees we plant and where. So, for example, I'm not Aaron. I'm not sure if that I'm pronouncing that correctly, but has mentioned afforestation. But yes, we need to be very careful about afforestation. We need to make sure we're planting the right trees in the right places. And there's places where we're not supposed to be planting trees. That's obviously a topic for another, that's like another discussion. But okay, yes, we're getting the idea. The idea is to create what we call green spaces. Okay. And basically we create these by planting native or indigenous plant.
species, okay, to basically bring back that biodiversity and bring back the ecosystem functioning and supporting biodiversity. Okay, and this is just a very wild concept I've put out there, and it's just to get the discussion going. Um, that we when we build masajid, it's always just this very harsh building structure, okay, and it's usually there's no consideration for the environment. And so the idea is we need to start re-greening our masajid, so by planting native plant species, okay. We have rooftop gardens around the masjid, the masajid, hanging walls. And if we do that, okay, what do you think? What are some positive outcomes that we will get from this? Anyone? Okay. So if we start, okay, so if we start planting native plant species, so if people don't understand what I mean by indigenous or native, please let me know. And then, sorry, Imtiaz has a question. Do native plant species require less care and thrive better? Yes, because they are adapted to that situation. Okay, so so is there anyone who doesn't know when I say native or indigenous what that means? Is there anyone that doesn't know? Please, uh, please raise your hand or put a question in the chat. So I'm just going to assume everyone. Oh, okay. Um, okay, so when I say native or indigenous, that means that plant has always been there. That's where it's originated from. Okay, it hasn't been brought from elsewhere. So, for example, pine trees, eucalyptus trees, they have been brought from maybe Europe, or well, eucalyptus is from Australia. Pine trees, maybe the northern hemisphere, Europe or the States, and they have very negative. We'll get to. They have a very negative impact on our environment. They use up more water, okay, than native species. Okay, they actually, and they don't attract biodiversity. Okay, they actually cause, they can cause even further damage. So they can cause damage to infrastructure. Like I said, they use up water. They can also bring in other pest species with them, which then affect our native species, and so we get a decrease in the ecosystem services associated with it. And sorry, so getting back to, yeah, so if we plant our native plant species, so for example, I've got some here, uh, maybe some of the people, the imams might recognize these, depending where they're from, but the ones on the right are edible plants. So they're native to that region. So these were in the DRC, and they're native plants, and the fruits are edible. We can use the one on the left is a South African plant that's used in traditional medicine. So if we use these in landscaping or regreening the masajid, the community also benefits from that. And if we remember the previous slides of what the value of oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. So if we go back, if we go back to that previous slide on traditional medicine, we saw the value of that, the economic value of them. So apart from the social value, where people are able to use where people are able to easily access medicine and food, there's also the economic benefits. So if they are harvested at a high enough uh, yield, people can sell them. Or but I'll get to, and I'll get to a case just now of where that's happened, where we've got a natural product has become a big business. Um, and then, like Mohammed says, attract biodiversity in the comments. Yes, so hopefully, inshallah, by planting these native plant species, we're going to bring back biodiversity, including key species. So, for example, here we have a termite mound, and associated typically with these termite mounds are edible mushrooms. Okay, so again, we're linking it back to people's well-being. To they have food, and if it's again, if the yield is quite big, it might be able to have some market value, but it again depending on the scale of the project. Uh, but at least locally people would be able to have food. And okay, here's an example. So where I am currently based, okay, we've planted. How do I know? Okay, sorry. Let me get. So I'm just going to answer this question. How do I know what plants are indigenous to my specific area? Is there perhaps a site that can help? Yes. Okay, that is also that's a very valid point, and it's perhaps something IDP can look at. I mean, I know I'm more than happy to help them with this, and perhaps the region that you are working in, we can identify what species are naturally occurring there. I mean, there's a lot of databases, websites where that's available, but we also need to look at what species we can actually cultivate and the techniques behind it, which is beyond the scope of this presentation, which was just to introduce the topic. But yeah, no, I mean, I will speak to Sayed and Imtiaz afterwards, and maybe this is something that we could look at um, for the imams. Yes, definitely, Imtiaz. If we give our location, yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think it's for those that are interested in this kind of work, we can definitely do that. I mean, I can definitely get involved in that. So just a case of where I'm from. So not where I'm from. Sorry, it's where I'm currently working. We've planted a whole lot of native plant species, and one of the key species that we've planted, um, and not necessarily in grove, it's been planted in the city, in the streets, it's been planted outside or the masajid, is a tree called Moringa peregrina, which is native to that area. And you will see the picture on the right is the moringa honey. Well, my family love it, so I've just brought another bottle home. This has actually become a very big business for Alula. The moringa honey, actually, all moringa products in general. So it's a native plant species, well adapted to that. I mean, it's a very harsh environment, very dry. So it's well adapted. It doesn't need any extra water or fertilizer or any extra costs. It's obviously cheap to it's a cheap plant to maintain, but it's now become a huge business for the city of Alula. And so apart from this moringa honey that that I've bought here, you get moringa soap, you get moringa oils, all like basically all beauty products associated with. So these are some things that we could identify on that in that region, which are the key species that we should be planting. And then obviously we don't want plants that put a high demand on water, because we all know water is quite a big issue. And on the topic of water as well, if we regreen our areas, uh, we will hopefully reduce the impact of depleting the water table, because remember that trees, especially yeah, trees control the climate. Okay, so that's how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has made it. He's everything He's created has a purpose, and the purpose of trees is to actually control our climate, and also to control the water table. So if which is one of the issues that we're currently having, throughout Africa, is excessive harvesting of timber for charcoal. And this is why we're finding that there's less and less water. And I know one of the projects of IDP is also, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, is providing boreholes for water, which I mean people do need and understand. but it's also how we take care of the boreholes, because eventually, I mean, the water has to come from somewhere. It's coming from the ground, and if that water is not replenished, then there's nothing we can actually do. It doesn't matter how many boreholes you have. If it's dry, it's dry. And coming back again, now we're talking about invasive species, and we definitely don't want invasive or alien species. Even though there might be some economic benefit, they actually outweigh. So the negative consequences of invasive species outweigh uh, those benefits. And Jazakallah khair for listening. But I just need, so yeah, we can open the floor to discussion now. And please, any questions, any comments, appreciated.
Uh, Jazakallah, Dr. Mohammed. I just had one question, especially for our imams.
Mhm.
So where would imams start? So what's the starting point? You have a masjid, you have all of this land, but
I
what's
think
my
okay.
starting point as an imam?
Yeah,
As
no, no, that's a good point, Dad.
some
So, good question. So I think the starting point is knowing what should we plant. Okay, so where are we? Okay, that's number one. Where are we? Then from there we can figure out what to plant. What do we need to plant? And we need to see what from there we the idea would then be to try and harvest seed or cuttings from the nearby areas, if that is available, um, in order to try and cultivate the species. But it's again it depends on location. If we're in a city, it's good. There's going to be challenges. If we're in a rural, there might be other challenges. So I think the idea is just to, if whoever's interested in this initiative, is basically to contact and just we need to see where this is, and from there we can advise actually on the actions taken. Is it, maybe there might be soil issues that need to be rectified first, before we even consider planting. Or we might say, okay, no, we actually can't plant any trees now. We actually need to plant grasses because the soil is too consolidated. It needs to be broken up. Um, so again, it has to be taken case by case.
Mm,
And the idea would be to see where you are and what your local environment is, and from there take action. And then, sorry, I'm just trying to read the chat. Sorry. Can you maybe explain the feasibility and possibility of directing water use from wudu into a small settling tank and using that to cultivate? Okay, yeah, so that's basically water recycling. So, you know, in and has this been done successfully? That's actually a good question. I'm not actually sure if there are examples um of that. So I just need to pop open the chat. Okay. Yeah, so has it been done successfully? I don't know if grey water recycling has been done in a masjid successfully. But I mean, that case example of recycling grey water and storm water is pretty much everywhere. And yeah, so instead of water, taking water, running it through the ground, and just wasting it, um, we feed it back into the garden, or even into a pond. Okay, although they might have issues with mosquitoes, which that would be a different issue. Yeah, so actually better not be to have an open water pond. Um, okay, and then what causes loss of biodiversity? It's basically, I mean, there's several. Okay, sorry, yeah. So I mean, there's several drivers that cause a loss of biodiversity. Number one is over harvesting. Okay, when I say number one, I don't mean that's the main one. The main one is actually loss of habitat. So where habitat is being destroyed, um, to maybe convert it to a mall, convert it to a mealie field, convert it to a mine. That's the main driver of that's the main loss. And but you might even have where you might have the habitat, you might have excessive hunting. So in a lot of places, in for example the DRC, we have what's called the empty forest syndrome. So the forest is there, but it's practically devoid of life because animals have been hunted practically to extirpation or extinction. Next question. Many of our lands have been spoiled by genetically modified chemicals. How do we redo that? That's actually very yeah, so that's actually quite a costly exercise. And again, it depends by what chemicals. I don't think maybe I'm not sure if you mean that. I think genetically modified chemicals, because genetics refers to living organisms. So if you're saying chemicals, you mean like fertilizer? Yeah, then that's something we have to look at remediation of that land. When you're saying or do you mean genetically modified crops, which is that's different. Um,
I can unmute Imam Ramiz and then he can maybe ask his question or if he'd like to elaborate more.
okay.
Okay, so many of our farms basically have been basically the farmers used those chemicals to basically in the fertilizers, etc. So
Okay.
now we come to find this land is there basically. So and the soil has already been spoiled by that particular chemicals. How do we basically undo that to get that ground to be non genetically modified, basically?
Okay. Well, okay. So it's not necessarily the ground is not genetically modified. But I get what you're saying. It's contaminated. And it depends on what the chemical is. That's the issue. There's different remediation methods, which I'm not actually a specialist in. But that's something again we'd have to look at. So what chemicals are there? If they are photodegradable, that means if sunlight hits them over a certain period of time, they break down. That's fine. Are they biodegradable? That means microbes can consume them eventually. Then that's fine. But if they're persistent, organic chemicals, then that's a different story and requires a lot of planning and thinking. And unfortunately, I'm not a soil remediation specialist, unfortunately, but again, it depends on the situation. If you want to start a vegetable garden in the masjid, what is the best way to start? I mean, that would be preparing soil, number one, and then I mean, you got to be able to sort your vegetables, to source your vegetables. The thing is, ideally, I think the best way to start is probably to plant beans because beans improve the quality of your soil. So but yeah, so that's I don't know, that's a vegetable garden, which is kind of again not necessarily for biodiversity, but if you mix it, so we normally we can have a mixed garden. So you'll have the vegetables, but around it you want native vegetation so that you be able to get those insect species to control the pests. But again, it comes down to soil preparation. So prepare the soil, and then the best thing to do first is to plant legumes, beans, so that'll improve your soil, and then you can get onto other vegetables. Or look at hardy vegetables as well. Like sweet potato, cassava. Is quite popular, and it tends to be very hardy. What can imams and muallimahs do to encourage their communities to adopt greener habits without overwhelming them? That's a good question. I mean, this is the first step in getting there, and it's how we have these these small meetings, small initiatives. Just start off small with a small group. Go out to the community, explain to them why what are the benefits of it? Obviously, smaller groups are better than larger groups. And when other people start seeing the positive impacts of greening and the benefits, then then that's how they'll get to the communities. Um, if an imam wants to introduce topic into, I mean, so well, I mean, the hadith that I provided is one. The best would be to ask an alim on what hadith or ayah to quote. That's yeah. um, I can't provide apart from the one hadith that I had. I'm not. I can't really say anything on that. Is it in a Jummah khutbah maybe? Yeah, I mean, again, that's yes. So that's obviously linked to the hadith or the to any Quranic verses. So yeah, that's a good point there, Imtiaz. Any other questions? Or any comments? Anything? Near the masjid? No, it should not be near the masjid. That it should ideally be placed away from the masjid, especially if there's kids around. So again, it depends on the context. If a highly populated area, it's not ideal to have the beehive. The beehive needs to be placed away. So the idea is not only specifically the masjid to, let's regreen the neighborhood around the masjid. And then we could have, beehives. We can put up, nesting boxes for birds. It'll be a good maybe a good DIY project for kids to make nesting boxes or something like that. Do you have examples of where a masjid was effectively greened? I did actually found there was a website I found, Eco Masjid, but nothing really, not exactly what we were looking for. There are examples, but the thing is, it's what we're not necessarily looking at just having plants, in a garden. It's more about having native plants that attract biodiversity but also benefit people. So, this is also then, this would be a good pilot study. If any, if some one of the imams wants to do this, and that would be a good pilot study and set an example for other masajid. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think it's not necessarily in Cape Town. I think it's everywhere. And this is one of my pet peeves. We just pave everything and then we complain that it's too hot, or that when it rains, it floods. Um, and exactly. So, we need to try and regreen so that we don't, we how do I say, we mitigate the impacts of us building, all these concrete areas and paved areas. Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, this is something that needs to be done. And then I'm not sure if you saw this question here. I mean, the request. Sahil?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm just getting the video.
Okay. Just checking.
Okay, the video is 15 minutes, so we can play the video for the rest of the session. Do you have any closing comments, Dr. Muhammad? Any advices for the imams, especially every community is different. So we have imams in urban areas, villages, rural areas, obviously taking costing into consideration as well. What is it that we can do as a start, and what would your advices be for our imams?
I think, I mean, they should, ideally, they would contact IDP, if, this is something that they would like to do in their community. And, I'm always available to advise. And so this is something that would need a bit of discussion of, where is it located? What's the area like around the masjid? What's the potential for getting funding? What's the potential for actually getting the native plants? This is something that needs to be discussed on a case by case basis. So, I mean, the best I think would be to approach you all, and then, you gladly approach me, and this is something that we could discuss.
Okay, Jazakallah. I'm going to switch over to the video. Jazakallah, Dr. Mohammed. We really appreciate your knowledge and your time, the time that you've taken to be with us. I've definitely learned a lot. There's a lot that I got from your session, and I'm sure the imams as well have learned quite a bit from you. And I think we'll add your details, your LinkedIn or somewhere for the imams to just connect with you also if they have any questions or need any advices as well.
I mean, Jazakallah khair. And no problem. Yeah, I mean, you can contact me anytime. No problem.
Okay, we'll switch over to the video. So this is a Australian Muslim who reverted to Islam, and now he's turned a desert into a green land. So we'll just watch this video to end off. Jazakallah.
And may have the secret to solving world. This man may have the secret to solving world hunger. His revolutionary ideas are changing the world as we speak. He attracts thousands of students from around the world, and he has the skills and know-how to turn sandy deserts green. Jeff took that. He can bring life to barren plains.
By the will of Allah.
By the will of Allah. His name is Jeff Lawton, and this is his story.
He's taught me more than another person, and he's a big part of my reason for reverting to Islam as well.
Many people asked us, why are new Muslims eligible for zakat? Well, when you help a new Muslim, you're not only helping them find their place in our great, beautiful ummah, but you're also helping them grow and flourish in ways you could never imagine, just like you're going to see in this video. So if you would like to help new Muslims here in Australia, pay your zakat locally to National Zakat Foundation, NZF. Let's get back to the video. We're here in Zaytuna Farm, a 66-acre property in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales, Australia, in a village called the Shannon. At first glimpse, it looks like a wild forest with densely populated trees, shrubs, and bushes all over the place.
And a lot of people would look at this and not understand what's going on because it's quite complex.
But it's in fact strategically designed, deeply interconnected, and one of the most sustainable farms you ever come across.
There's fruit trees of all different types, and there are food plants in all sorts of layers. Avocado here, we have black sugarcane, we have mango, we have figs and pomegranates. There's an enormous amount of fruit.
How was this all achieved? Through an innovative idea known as permaculture. Permaculture was a word that was made up by this man, Bill Mollison, the direct teacher of Jeff Lawton. It's basically a methodology of managing land in the most sustainable and natural way. So forget everything you know about farms, tractors, and machinery. Permaculture looks towards nature as the ultimate teacher.
Nature's been sustainable for millions, billions of years, all on its own. Didn't need a tractor, didn't need fertilizer, soil stayed fertile.
So just for the record, Zaytuna Farm, there's no pesticides, no herbicides, nothing.
No synthetic fertilizer. We don't have to water. We don't have to fertilize. And we don't have to weed. Only thing we have to do is pick. It won't pick itself.
Jeff's been practicing it for over 40 years, intricately studying the way nature works to come up with better ways to design land. Whether it's through managing the flow of water or choosing the right plants to grow in the right location. We're surrounded by bamboo. Everywhere you look, you see bamboo.
There's a lot of different bamboo, but along here, this is allelopathy. This stops things growing underneath it. So right here, it's like a control mechanism on the edge of this system.
You get the point. The guy's an expert. Just to give you an idea of how powerful his knowledge is, this was Zaytuna Farm in 2002. Nothing more than a dry and dusty paddock. And this is what it looks like today. That's where it started, and that's where it is, and that's where it is. Jeff took that to that, turning the desert green. It's become a flourishing ecosystem, home to a plethora of plants, wildlife, and frogs. Lots of frogs.
There's 15 varieties of rare frog. There's 112 birds species.
112 birds.
I started off with 53 species of bird. Now we're at 112. It's a medicinal tree that the Prophet used to use called senna, and the seed came from Medina.
Wow. A seed from Medina all the way to Zaytuna Farm in northern New South Wales. Jeff's work has been so impactful, he's attracted an entire community onto the farm to live here as well. Just like the owners of this tiny home here, who have a drinkable swimming pool. Yes, you can drink it.
Spirulina, there's a little bit of algae around, but that's
All right, but it's...
we do it together, right?
I just want that. That's nice water.
Yeah, that's
That's fresh water from a swimming pool, a natural swimming pool that is completely running off the earth. His work has carried him across the world in over 50 countries. But by far, his most ambitious project to date is this one right here, the Greening the Desert project in Jordan, where he was successfully able to convert a desert valley into a green oasis filled with fruit, vegetables, and even chameleons.
Which are rare Middle Eastern chameleons. We don't know where they came from.
It was a miracle transformation, but it was nothing like the transformation Jeff was about to experience in the same dusty desert.
I was at the end of 4 years designing, consulting, and teaching in the Jordan Valley. And then we had 9/11. And then we invaded Afghanistan. It's like, what are we doing? And then we invaded Iraq, right? And George Bush is saying, you're either with us or against us.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm not with you. I'm definitely not with you. That's for sure. Because I see all this stuff and it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. And I know these people. So I'm like, okay, I asked some brothers, they're brothers now, can you take me to a mosque? I just really want to understand a bit more about Islam. And that's where the journey started. They took me to the Haji school on Friday prayers, taught me the Shahada, asked me if that sits well, okay with me. I said, yeah, it sits okay with me. Can you learn it? So I learned the Shahada and they took me to Friday prayers. The head imam walked straight up to us, in amongst everybody, and said to my friends, who's this? Oh, no. I said, his name's Jeff. He just, what's his name? He said, Jeff. And he just laughed. And he said, nah, his name's Jamal Adin. Which I know the translation of now, right? So, and I'm like, okay, everything seemed pretty cool. Almost seemed quite alternative in some ways. It was very peaceful. It was very easygoing. It wasn't rigid as I thought. It was quite hippie, actually. Peace be with you, salam alaikum, don't have an ego and show off your body.
You could say Islam was perfectly natural for him. Speaking of which, it was only natural that this was going to happen too. Jeff?
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We need to finish this project. Imam Sarat. Alhamdulillah, I'm here at Masjid Isa ibn.
Met Nadia, a Palestinian woman from Jordan.
When I came and I told my mom, look, you remember that blue eyes guy, Jeff, the one teach permaculture? She said, yes. I said, wow, he's interested on me and he wants to marry. And I'm just really like, oh, Mom, what to do? He said, leave it with me. And she went to my dad and she said, look, one lady here in the village, as a guy, he became a Muslim and he interested to marry her, but her dad refused. And he said, why? He said, like, he's Ahmad, like, she basically. And so he should, like, he's become a Muslim, he will have a big ajr and all that stuff. Like, My mom smiled and she said, actually, this is your daughter. And he said, oh, okay. I better ask a judge about it.
I had to go to get a certificate to be a Muslim. I have a certificate of the Muslim faith. So I had to recite Fatiha in front of a crown judge in the capital city of Amman.
And since then we together and we traveled. The first trip we went to Iraq, and that actually our honeymoon.
Oh, it was a war zone honeymoon.
Start a war zone.
But you'd never been on a plane before. So it was really romantic. Right?
Absolutely.
Today, Jeff and Nadia manage Zaytuna Farm, which, by the way, also runs a research institute, attracting thousands of students every year from across the world and all walks of life, all the while keeping everything halal.
I'm halal like that chicken from the butcher.
He's produced students like this young chap right here, Sam Parker Davies, a young conservationist from the Blue Mountains in New South Wales.
I've learned more from Jeff than I've learned from any other person. He's been my greatest teacher and one of my best mentor. He's taught me more than another person, and he's a big part of my reason for reverting to Islam as well.
MashaAllah.
I found Islam through permaculture.
Wow.
So actually in high school I studied Islam. We studied Islam through the lens of it being an environmental religion. So I went to a hippie school. A bit of an alternative for the out there school.
I'm sensing a lot of hippie vibes on the channel. I'm not gonna lie. I do sense it here and there. Yeah.
And so I got taught by this lovely Buddhist lady about Islam. And so we did this part of it about how it related to the environment. And so for me, being environmentally inclined, when I started to learn about how environmental Islam was, it was very clear. It gave me a clarity of understanding morality that I couldn't get from another faith.
Allahu Akbar. SubhanAllah. Yeah, no, definitely God is Allahu Akbar. It was incredible, but it wasn't until he traveled to Palestine did his love for Islam take a whole new level.
And Palestine was perhaps the most impactful country I've ever been to in my life.
Wow.
I went to Hebron.
Khalil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, that place shocked me to my core.
Wow.
I got to a vantage point. I could see over the wall. I could see the rubble of old Arab houses, town blocks that had been destroyed. And I could see like a city, 150,000 people, just next to like 500 settlers that was surrounded by militaries, 18-year-olds wielding machinery they should not be wielding.
Oh, wow.
And then I walk out onto the street, and there's these little 5-year-olds run up to me with no shoes on, offer me food straight away. First thing that happened, like these kids with no shoes, they're obviously not got a lot of money. And the first thing they think to do to me, a Westerner walking out of an occupied area, first thing that happens is I get offered food. And that's got to say something. Yeah. So I think the kindness of the Palestinians, more than any other people I met, showed me truly what Islam was.
To young Sam, Islam is a way of life that fortifies his love for the environment and his creator, Allah.
The more and more I was here, the more and more I saw Islam as something holistic and complete. And to the point where even the time you woke up, it was the healthiest time. And the time you went to bed, it was the healthiest time. And then I went through Ramadan being only eating raw food. And I started to see a side of Islam that Islam is built for the person who stewards the land. Islam is built for the person who works with their hands. And I truly believe, because subhanAllah, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he worked with his hands and he knew these truths.
Yes.
For us to interact with and try to understand the vastness of creation and the profundity of creation, the absolute awe of creation, I think we would never truly understand or never even start to grasp how beautiful this creation is without interacting with it. If we live a disconnected life, a life disconnected to creation, where we work a 9-to-5 job, we sit in an office, we think about mundane things that we must do in order to survive, in order to put food on the table. We're not thinking about, wow, how did these tomatoes grow from that tomato plant and end up on my plate? Like I would if I picked a tomato from a plant, That's not something that's easily thought about when you're just sitting at a table, when you're tired from work. And the closer and closer you live to nature, the more and more easy it is to be in absolute awe of the life that you live, of the world that we live in, to be in absolute connection with God, which is what awe is. If we're in awe of creation, how can we not be in awe of our Creator? How can we not be in love with God?
It was a holistic way of life and understanding of religion, and it ran right across Zaytuna Farm.
One thing I noticed about Islam was it takes the complications out of life. If you take it as pure sunnah, you know, and try and live like the Prophet, right, as best you can, right, peace be upon him, you're taking the complications out of life. And when you read, and I've read the translation of the Quran, of course, it's like an instruction manual of how to live. So it sets out the Sharia law in such a peaceful way that's all done for you, right? So you just get on with life after that.
It's very peaceful feeling toward the Islam and toward the Prophet and toward the permaculture. I feel like this is the only way we could actually live. And it's if it's not living this way, I think it's part of the Sunnah is missing.
Oh, she's taught me a lot of wisdom about life in general, all of life. There's lots of wise words come out of my wife's mouth, I can tell you. She's my rock. I go back to the rock and ask. She's got the solid base.
It was a deeper understanding of religion that so many of us living in the cities were detached from.
If you do the right thing in this life, and you live a good life, and you get judged well, you end up in paradise, where there's a forest of food and fruit and clear water running underneath. Yeah, where are we right now?
In the garden.
We've got water running. You're sitting in a swell, right? That when the rains, it's going to have water in it, right?
The garden,
and it's going from down to down.
Rivers flow.
We're surrounded by fruit, right? So it's in respect of what from doing the right thing, that's what we're going to get.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would say that if one of you was to see the hour approach and within his hand was a seed, he should plant it. Even if he knows then and there that everything was going to end, he should still plant that seed. When you pass away, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
This farm, hopefully, will be a legacy. And that's why I made it an eco-farming community and registered a cemetery on the farm. I particularly feel that the children need, there's so many innocent children that need this as a beacon of hope that they can live a really good life and feel like they're a very meaningful part and beneficial part of life on earth and God's creation. That'd be the best legacy ever.
May Allah make Jeff's life and work a perpetual charity, a tree from which people benefit from, and one that never ends. Zaytuna Farm, until we meet again.
Okay, Jazakallah, Imams and Muallimahs. Jazakallah once again to Dr. Muhammad. That's the end of our session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.